This is Apple's new iPad mini. Not only is it the redesign for the mini that we've all been asking for, it's also now holding Apple's latest and greatest mobile chip, the A15 Bionic. And to be completely transparent with you all, and it's kind of an exciting development for my channel, Apple actually sent me the mini a little early, so I've been using it for about a week now, and while it will take a little longer than that to build a full picture of it, I wanted to share with you my thoughts of the most important aspects: the size, the performance of that A15 chip, and the battery life. And remember, if you do like iPad and aesthetic tech content, be sure to subscribe. I get constant reminders from YouTube that only 11% of you are, so come and join the community. Anyway, let's get right into it. The most exciting part of the new iPad mini is the redesign, and the easiest way for me to explain how it feels and looks is by comparing it to the iPad Air from 2020. Apple has basically just taken a shrink ray to that iPad and made it mini, so you're getting all the improvements like USB-C, Touch ID on the power button, Apple Pencil 2 support, and a wonderful array of colours. I have the purple one here and it's really nice. It's more of a kind of lavender sort of colour and I'm a huge fan of it. Size-wise, this new iPad is really tiny. As all the marketing suggests, holding it in one hand really is no problem at all, and slipping it into a small bag or large pocket is totally possible. To give you some sense of scale though, this is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, the 11-inch iPad Air, and finally the new Mini. Oh, and here's an iPhone 12 Pro Max and an iPhone 12 Pro Standard. The iPad mini is now rocking a liquid retina display clocked at 60Hz, which is very similar to the iPad Air from 2020. I think there was some initial disappointment that there was no ProMotion display on here, but I'm not sure if those will ever trickle down from the Pro devices. And honestly, on this smaller display size, it's not that big of an issue. Because of that smaller 8.3 screen though, I actually found I needed to rethink my iPad layout. Having the dock so full of apps not only looks really overcrowded, but it made it harder to use. So I trimmed those down to the essentials while building a new layout for my screens in general. This made it easier to use as a whole, and it really makes it feel different from other iPads. Doing real work on the mini is obviously possible, but I would find it hard to recommend for really long stints of that. For instance, writing an essay on here might feel quite cramped compared to the other iPads, and running apps side by side in multitasking works as well as it always has, but those apps are now extra small, which makes it a little less useful than it was before. For my day-to-day use though, I've really enjoyed using the mini. Photo editing in Lightroom is as wonderful as it's ever been. Emails, internet browsing, Pinterest scrolling, and Notion managing have all been excellent. And my favourite task of note-taking on the iPad is just fantastic on here. I love this size for writing down my thoughts, and it mimics my older notebooks that I used to use before moving to the iPad. Because of its smaller stature too, taking the iPad mini with me on any trip or outing is a real no-brainer now. I wouldn't ever leave the mini behind or have any issues deciding which computer to take with me on trips, because I would happily take this with me absolutely anywhere. Another huge update for the mini was the inclusion of Apple's latest mobile chip, the A15 Bionic, which has all the classic upgrades you'd expect. Faster this, faster that, you know the drill. And it's very fair to say it rips through iPad OS no problem. All general use is as snappy as you'd like, and despite there being no ProMotion display on here, everything feels super smooth. It's a great overall experience for general use. Of course though, to really put the new chip to the test, I've been trying it with some graphically intense gaming sessions and some more demanding productivity apps. Starting with Genshin Impact, I was really happy to say this ran incredibly smoothly with the graphics settings totally maxed out and the frame rate set to 60 FPS. Even with a lot going on like particle effects and enemies on screen, I saw no stuttering and everything felt fast, fluid and wonderful to play, so that was really impressive. I also gave The Pathless a go, which is a really beautiful title, and again, to little surprise, it didn't break a sweat. The Pathless ran smoothly without any stutter and no form of noticeable lag. And on top of that, loading times for both of these games was really excellent. I have a feeling this iPad is going to be a fantastic little gaming machine, so if you want a proper gaming test, then let me know in the comments below. There's loads more titles I can try for a proper test, and I'm sure it'd be interesting to see how it holds up against the M1 chip in the iPad Pro. Moving over to some productivity apps, I started with loading up an old 4K timeline in LumaFusion, and this posed no problems for the A15 chip at all. As expected, cutting through 4K footage was smooth, even with multiple layers of video running at the same time, and with some light color grading too. I've also been using it as my main photo editing machine with Lightroom, and it's not skipped a beat either. Copying an edit and pasting it to a large amount of photos is razor fast, and exporting times are really great too. Overall, I think it's safe to say the new chip in here is crazy powerful, and it's going to live up to pretty much any task you could throw at it. And more importantly, it means that the software support and the general use will be fantastic for years to come. Okay, so let's talk about battery life. Typically, battery life is really hard to quantify because we all use our devices differently, but what I can say is this measures up to what I've been getting from the iPad Pro 12.9 and the iPad Air, so it's pretty great. I don't think anyone will struggle to get through a day of usage unless you're perhaps editing a really large 4K video project, or if you're gaming for hours on end. That's a good thing. I was at least expecting this iPad to be worse on battery than others due to its size, but it appears Apple has managed to keep this in line with what we expect from an iPad. It's another all-day affair for most people, which is great. Accessory-wise, I was really happy to see the second generation of Apple Pencil come to the iPad mini. It now snaps to the side for charging and storage, which is ideal, and it turns the iPad mini into a seriously wonderful little note taker. And look, I don't want to sound like a broken record on this channel, but I've made it no secret that note taking is one of my favourite things to do on iPads, and the mini is no different. It's the perfect size and it's an utter joy to take notes on. Something I did notice during the keynote that Apple gave on the iPad mini was there was no smart connectors on the back, meaning this iPad mini would be shipping without any support for the Apple keyboard accessories, and initially that felt like a really odd omission. Surely people will want a keyboard for this thing, but after using it for a while I can see why Apple left it out. It's just straight up too small for it. I tried it with my smallest keyboard, the Logitech Keys to Go, and it felt a little ridiculous. And if Apple had made a Magic Keyboard for it, it would have been so small. As someone who's never been a huge fan of the Magic Keyboard, I don't mind this. The size of this iPad doesn't call for long typing sessions, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't or can't. Attaching a Bluetooth keyboard to the iPad mini is as simple as ever to do if you really fancy using one. That aside, Apple did make a set of smart folio covers which match the new colorways, which are really nice. Again, the purple one is really cool, and I found a sticker to match it too, which is ideal. Because of the lack of smart connectors on the back though, I genuinely thought that this was going to be the first iPad that adopted MagSafe, and I had a secret hope while watching the event that they were going to announce it. But it's not here, and I think that's a big shame. The iPad mini is uniquely positioned to take advantage of some of the accessories we've seen come out for MagSafe on the iPhone, but hey, maybe it'll come next year. Overall, I really like the new iPad mini. As someone who still uses a MacBook Pro or a desktop as my main machine, I think the size makes it the perfect little companion for my specific use cases, and I've really enjoyed using it over the last week or so. However, while I do really like it, the pricing structure makes picking any iPad other than the 9th generation a really tricky task. This mini starts at £479 for 64GB, which on the surface is a good starting point, but if you want more storage, the price jumps up to £619, which is more expensive than the starting point of the iPad Air, which gives you a bigger screen and access to more features like the keyboard attachments, but you only get 64GB of that. So if you want more storage on the Air, it jumps up to £729, which is spitting distance to an iPad Pro, which actually starts with a decent amount of storage at 128GB. So it's a real minefield to decide which way to go. For some though, the physical size might be the deciding factor here, and I think that's probably the best way of thinking and looking at it. This is going to be a fantastic iPad for drone flyers, note takers, and people who are out in the field for their work, or if you're just like me and you still use the iPad as a companion device. So consider what your use case is going to be beforehand and then decide based off that. Anyway, that pretty much rounds up my first week with the iPad mini. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any questions and I will do my best to get back to you, or just let me know if you're picking one up and in which colour. As ever, hearing from you is one of my favourite parts about YouTube, so come and say hello. And with that, I will see you all in the next one.